So we have arrived in Kalispell, Montana, which I've heard how beautiful it is. And so far from the airport view, it is quite beautiful. I've been here now, curbside, for, I don't know, maybe 35 minutes, trying to find a ride to get to my hotel. I haven't had this issue in a really long time, at least not in America. So, after multiple attempts at Uber and Lyft and calling local cab companies, which is something I also haven't done in years, I finally just got confirmation of an Uber to drive me 7 miles to my hotel, which is going to take me about a 10, 11 minute drive. It's costing me $75. Probably should have just rented a car. So, lesson learned. Although beautiful, at least here on Saturday afternoon, rides are few and far between, therefore expensive. So, lesson learned. All right, good morning. It is 09:30 here. I'm in my hotel just north of Kalispell, actually in the Cedar Creek Lodge. I don't know, about 8 miles or so north of Kalispell. You guys saw my transportation debacle from yesterday, which really just was the first of several events here that we're going to talk about for a second. All this my fault. So I mean, when I planned this trip, I knew I was going from Tennessee to San Diego to link up with Jocko, stay there 2 nights, and then fly there to Montana. And the purpose behind this portion of the trip is I'm meeting up with Andy Stumpf to go on his Cleared Hot podcast, which I'm doing tomorrow. And then I'll leave the following day, head back home. So multi-day trip, which isn't anything overly complex. It's a little more complex than just going to one place and coming back. And clearly I was in a rush, and I can remember when I booked this trip, I did more research on the San Diego portion than here. And I took a look at it. Kalispell is really small. So I was like, yeah, small town, Montana, whatever. It doesn't really matter where I stay because it's not a very big area. And as it would turn out, public trans is in high demand out here. When I got in my Uber yesterday, the girl, who was very nice, as soon as I got in, I was like, I think I found out what my retirement plan is going to be. I'm going to move to Kalispell and become a full-time Uber driver because you're making $70+ on an 11-minute drive. And I was like, is this normal, or does this just happen to be this time of the day on today? She's like, no, this is pretty normal. I'm like, wow, those are phenomenal margins. I mean, that's like 6 figures, if depending on how frequent you're driving people, but that's unbelievable. So clearly I fucked up because I didn't do my research prior. If I had, then I would have just rented a car or a truck. I just had my own personal trans. So I had, more cost effective and easier freedom of movement. So totally botched that. Noted. It's been a while since I've traveled in the States to a more remote area, which I love these types of areas. And this is great. This is like, there's nothing to complain about where I'm at now. This is beautiful. I just botched the planning because it had been a while. So this is a good reminder for future logistical trips to pay attention to where you're going. And, the Uber ride was the first of a few events. So I get to my hotel and I check in. It's a beautiful setup. And, the reason why I booked this hotel was it was at a discounted cost. It had some deal going. Has a fitness center, has a pool, has a fire pit area. It's beautiful. I mean, you're literally sitting in a postcard. And I was like, yeah, this will work. Absolutely. So I came here, checked in. Very nice people. Got situated, got up into my room. And I hadn't eaten much. I had breakfast before I left. And then, I had a couple protein bars en route. So I needed some food. And I was just figuring out like what I was going to do for the rest of the day. It was like late afternoon, like early evening time frame. By the time I got here, got settled, got situated. So I jump on Uber Eats, right? As if regular Uber had already proved to be a challenge. I'm like, yeah, Uber Eats. We'll just see if there's an option. So I jump on that, and there were some options, several options. So this is like 5:00. Okay. So I'm like, cool, I'll grab some food. It'll show up here. I'll lay out my timeline, see what I want to get into for the rest of tonight, and then kind of map out the rest of my time that I'm here. So I order something from like a pizza, like a local pizza joint. It's like a half a mile down the street from the hotel, which I didn't know at the time. I just saw the restaurant, ordered it up, and then was good to go. So I really wasn't paying attention to it. And then I got the computer out. I was doing some research. I was answering some emails, scoping out the area, seeing what I want to get into. And like 90 minutes went by, and I finally check the status. And it's like, yeah, it's on the way or whatever. It's like, okay, cool. And then 7 p.m. rolls around. So 2 hours after I had made the order, and I get like an alert and it pops up. It says, your order's been canceled. So I'm like, okay. 2 hours was just wasted. So I'm getting frustrated because now I'm hungry. I'm getting hangry. I'm like, what the fuck? Okay. Jump back on Uber Eats because clearly I hadn't learned my lesson yet. And now there's not a single restaurant available for delivery at this point. Not one. So I'm like, okay. It's Saturday evening. Not a single restaurant is offering delivery right now. Okay, they're just busy, I guess. So now I'm getting desperate. Right? So like my prosthetic is off. I'm in kind of chill mode. And I want to eat before I like go do anything. Now I'm getting desperate. I call the local Domino's, which is not food that I typically eat unless my son loves Domino's cheese deep dish. So if he's wanting that and it's been a while, we'll get it. I usually don't partake in that kind of food. But it's been a long time since I called a Domino's. I called. Someone answers the phone. They're open. Hours are open. They're open till like 10 p.m. And girl answers. She's like, how you doing? I'm like, yeah, delivery. She's like, great. Where's it going? I tell them it's going to this hotel. She puts me on hold, which was weird. I'm on hold like 3 minutes. Someone else picks up the phone. She's like, can I help you? I'm like, yeah, like I'm trying to get some food delivery. She's like, we're closed. I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, we closed at 4:00. This is 7 p.m. Now 2 people have answered the phone that I've spoken to. And now they're closed. It was the weirdest thing. I'm like, what fucking planet am I on right now? So now I'm really frustrated. I'm like, all right, this delivery thing is not happening. So strap my leg back on, get upright, hit the streets. I'm walking down the street. I pull up like local restaurants and I find the pizza joint that I had originally ordered from now 2.5 hours prior using Uber Eats. And it's like a half mile down the street. So I stroll up down that way and I call them while I'm on the road walking, place an order. They had some good food. They had a couple salad options, some grilled chicken. So I was able to eat relatively clean. Ordered a few things, meandered my way up that way, and it's in this little, really small, kind of like downtowny like area. There's like little shops. There's a couple little bars, a couple little eateries, and I got there before it was gonna be ready. And there was a little bench outside the restaurant. I sat down there and just took a look around, and just a lot of good people. You could tell it's like a blue collar environment. There's definitely some tourist traffic here as well, like backpackers and hikers. So people are in like athletic clothing and moving around. And I looked up and I'm staring at the mountains, and that's what it took for me to just like reset and like recenter myself. Between the ride and the delivery debacle and having to get upright and move to go get some food. I was fortunate to have to be forced to do that. Got some movement, which is good. Got outside, got some fresh air, which is good. Kind of engrossed myself in my current operating environment, which is good. So there was a lot of good things. And then just being able to take all that in, take a step back, kind of detach for a second, and realize how fortunate I am to be where I am. In that moment is when that all kind of came together. So everything just like chilled way down. My frustration completely dissipated, and I was totally good to go. Which just is a small example of how discomfort leads to progress. And that's macro and then also micro, like in the small moments, like battling through frustration and discomfort within any form. There's good things happen on the backside of that. You just have to fight through it. So small example of that was yesterday. So given my logistical shit show, failure to properly plan, failure to properly assimilate to my current environment, eventually I got myself straight where I needed to be. So I think the game plan for today is going to be hang out in this local area. I did my morning calisthenics and range of motion stuff here in my room, which is pretty easy. Sun's coming in through the window, big open area. I got a, moose behind me here, big open area. Knocked that out. Ended up being like a 45 minute little workout, which was good. Went downstairs, had some breakfast, came back to my room. I think I'm gonna hang out in this local area today and just check this out. Mostly because I just don't want to have to pay to travel anywhere because it's gonna be expensive. I'm positive of that. I got a virtual engagement thing I got to do here in about 15 minutes, so I'll knock that out and I'll get caught up on some computer work, and then I'm just gonna spend my afternoon here in the Cedar Creek area, and then tomorrow I'll head down into Kalispell pretty early in the morning so I can check out that area before I link up with Andy in the afternoon to knock that out. So a lot of lessons learned here, but just, take that step back, look at it from 30,000 feet for a second, take a breath, and just recognize the positive aspects of what's going on, and then deploy gratitude for what we have, even within that moment of frustration and potentially chaos or discomfort. That's the plan. We'll check in later. All right. Made my way down to Flathead River here in Columbia Falls. Hopefully you guys can hear me. I didn't bring my wireless mic. Another mistake. Another lesson learned. Make my way down this little goat trail. Give you guys an idea of what we're looking at right now. Legit. Completely legit. That's just beautiful. Yeah. Just found myself a little spot set back from the river. So hopefully you can hear what I'm saying. As I said, another mistake is not bringing audio equipment. In this, what you're seeing right now, this unfiltered series, this is new, and I do at this point have a small media cell within the team that helps me with this, who are going to give me shit about forgetting to bring a tripod and microphone, and rightfully so. So we're learning as we go. But something I wanted to share while I'm here in this scenic moment, and I just found this turned over bench that looked like at one point was cemented into the ground, that then was knocked over or has been knocked over on purpose. So now I'm technically sitting on what would be the backrest, and I'm leaning against what would be the seat. Came over here, saw this, and then this is just good for those that are relatively novice with being outdoors, is if you see something that looks comfortable to you, it's also comfortable to other shit. So check it before you just plop down on top of it. Whether that's an object like this, a rock, a log, a tree stump, whatever it is. If it looks comfortable for you, it's comfortable for something else. So give it a kick, give it a shake, give it a cursory search before you commit to sitting on it or laying on it or whatever. So before I took off to come out here, and you can see there's actually some more foot traffic coming through this area. Before I took off to come out here, my prosthetic was on the charger. And I'll show you this when I get back to the hotel. But this technology that's within this knee, the X3, it talks to you. I mean, not audibly, but it communicates with you. So when you pull this off the charger, or when you pull the charger off of the leg, there's an audible tone. And depending on the number of beeps, is the best way to say it. Depending on the number of beeps, will tell you the condition that the knee is in. I'll show you this here when I get back. Pulled it off the charger and I got 3 beeps, which is the sign that something is broken or it's on the verge of breaking. And that's not necessarily some catastrophic situation where like the pylon snapped in half. Usually it has something to do with the microprocessor itself or the gaskets that control the fluid, which is part of how the knee articulates. A conversation for another day, but I pull the charger off and I get 3 beeps, so I know my leg is not in optimal condition. Well, I knew I wanted to hit the streets and come find, a scenic spot like this. I mean, I'm in Montana, so now I'm at a decision point. Do I take the risk and go on a little adventure, knowing that this is the only knee I brought with me, as you guys may have seen in a previous clip, but I decided on this trip to just bring one knee, and it's because this is a short trip and it's a business trip. I wasn't thinking ahead in terms of recreation. Another mistake I made in a location like this that's been noted. But I brought one knee and I brought a set of emergency crutches. So, do I take the risk knowing my knee is trending in a bad direction, or do I play it safe and just stay in the hotel or stay closer to the hotel? Because right now I'm a couple miles at least, more like 3 miles away from where I'm staying. Special Forces warrant officers, which is what I am, there's a lot of doctrinal responsibilities that we have. The most significant, I would say, in my opinion, is risk management, or really better put, is risk calculus. Risk calculus. And the reason why I place that as the number one doctrinal responsibility we have is because in reality, our primary responsibility is that of an advisor. We advise decision makers. And on the detachment, that those decision makers are the captain, which is the detachment commander. You're advising him on strategy and operations. You're also advising the team sergeant, the senior enlisted guy who really runs the team. Right? All the guys on the team, aside from myself and the captain, they all work for him. So I'm advising him when it comes to tactics and personnel management type stuff. Well, a lot of what makes us effective advisors is our risk calculus that we do. Because it's very easy to root all decisions down to risk. And there are three primary things that go into risk calculus, which I'll get into at a later time, but it's identifying hazards, so things that can cause problems, identifying mitigation criteria to essentially make the task safer, sort of mitigate the hazards, and then lastly is the potential effects that come by executing the task. So, is the juice worth the squeeze? That is risk calculus. And this is something that I've been doing now for quite a while, even before I was officially pinned as a warrant officer. It's really just part of becoming a seasoned, experienced member of the special operations community. This is just part of the job. The reason why I bring that up is at a broader level, aside from the minutia, the mechanics of risk calculus, it can be boiled down to the risk of action versus the risk of inaction. So what are the hazards, mitigation criteria, and potential effects if I do the task? And what are the hazards, mitigation criteria, and effects if I don't do the task? At both sides. You can look at both sides. And really, we have the responsibility to look at both sides. Particularly as it pertains to conducting military operations, but this same philosophy obviously extends to us with everyday life. And just right now is an example of that. So I'm in my room, I pull my leg off the charger, I get 3 beeps, something's trending in a bad direction. Risk of action versus risk of inaction. Essentially just asking the question, what if? What if I go on my little stroll, on my little adventure, and my leg breaks? And you play that game. You walk that out. You flesh that out. Look for ways to mitigate those potential hazards or that particular hazard, and then analyze that up against the potential upside, the potential effect of executing versus the risk of inaction. So what if I don't go? What if I just stay in my hotel room? Same process. I obviously decided to execute. I brought my emergency crutches are right here as a mitigation criteria. It would be a really shitty day because those things are not made for long distance nor terrain, which I'm in now, but I was comfortable with assuming the risk of that hazard happening and having some type of recourse. some type of immediate action to go to get myself out of the problem. So I asked myself, what if? And decided to execute. And the potential upside, which is happening now, is I got a chance to experience an amazing place, which I'm at now. And then I also got an opportunity, an effect, to communicate this with you. So far, I am more than happy with the decision, with the risk that I took, with the decision I made, knowing the risk. You know, that phrase, what if, that's powerful. And you can use that in multiple different ways. And one way I leverage it often, knowing one of my greatest fears, possibly my greatest fear, is the fear of regret, the fear of looking back in a decade or 2 decades, or when I'm 137 years old, laying in a hospital bed, and I look back and I ask myself, what if? What if I had just pushed a little harder? What if I had just made that one additional sacrifice? What if? What could have happened? What could have been different? So I just want you guys to think for a second right now. Doc Emmett Brown from Back to the Future, classic. Doc Emmett Brown pulls up in front of you right now in the DeLorean, right? 1.27 gigawatts, and can take you back in time. And he takes you back to the time when you had a pizza in front of you and you ate it. Well, what if you didn't? What if you didn't eat that slice or those 2 slices or that entire pie? What if you didn't do that? What if you went back, Doc Brown takes you back, jump in, Marty, let's go. Hair on fire, plutonium, the Iranians chasing them around. What if you went back and you didn't eat the pizza? Would you have the physique that you dream of having right now? What if you went back and that night that you were invited out with your friends to go burn down the clubs, what if you stayed in instead? Where would you be right now if you had done that? What if that time that your son asked you for help with his homework and you were too busy? What if you prioritized that over everything else and you did that? What if? You know, we're all probably familiar with the term the butterfly effect, right? Go back in time, you change one small thing and there's a ripple effect that happens that changes everything else that happens from that point moving forward. Well, as we sit here today, we have a chance to do that. The DeLorean's not showing up. Emmett Brown's not showing up. Right? Forget about the gigawatts. That's not happening. But what we can control, what can happen, are the decisions that we can make now to create that ripple effect moving forward. We just have to see it that way. We just have to see that these small micro decisions that we make are real easy to justify as it doesn't really matter. You can justify it as it's just one slice of pizza. It's just one night out with my friends. It's just a drink, right? Which I don't even know if that even exists. Let's go out for a beer. I don't know how many times I've gone out for a beer and find myself dragging myself through the door at 4 o'clock in the morning wondering what the hell just happened. But it's real easy to look at that one moment as I'll help my son with his homework later. As it's easy to look at it in real time as not being a big deal, as being insignificant in the bigger picture. Well, the butterfly effect. Every one of these decisions, regardless of the size, bring the potential to radically change our future. That's real. Because if you do skip out on the pizza, you've just calloused your mind just that much more. You've just made yourself that much more in control of your emotions. You've made yourself just that much more in control of your hunger, of your nutrition, of your discipline. These are skills, okay? These are skills that are learned through repetition, through reps. That one slice gets you another rep at being better at all these different character traits, all these different aspects of our lives that are critically important to build on in order to become the person we want to be. This is quite simple. We just need to look at it through that lens. Ask yourself, what if? Are you okay with being a buzzkill? Are you okay with being boring? Are you okay with being predictable? Are you okay with that? Both from outwardly into you, so from your friends, your family, labeling you as such, as well as internally, looking at yourself as such. Are you okay with that? Are you willing to do that for the sake of what if? That's the question. Choices and consequences is the game of life. I'm going to enjoy the view here a little bit longer. Probably stroll down another half mile or so down this trail before I head back. Hopefully my leg stays intact. And then we can Charlie Mike with the rest of this trip. See you guys. All right, so I'll show you guys what I was talking about. Here's the prosthetic. This is the knee. The Autobach X3, currently on the charger. 5 green lights means it's fully charged. And then just listen to the sound when I take it off. Yeah, 1, 2, 3. So not only is it 3 beeps, but it's kind of scratchy sounding. So this thing's in, relatively rough condition, but it's still working. So there's no way to tell how long it'll keep working until it starts to act crazy. And then it can, once it deteriorates worse, it can do a whole bunch of different things. It can lock up where the knee won't bend, or it could just start swinging like crazy without any kind of resistance. So the actuation of the knee can get worse, and that could be a variety of different things. So I think I'll be fine. Fortunately, I only have 2 more nights left, and then I'll be home. So I'll bring this in to my guys up at Bulow Prosthetics. They'll see if it's still in the warranty. If it is, they'll send it back. They'll get it serviced. And if it's out of warranty, then I'll just get a new one, which is pretty typical for me. I beat the hell out of these things. So I am going to do a more in-depth episode here on the prosthetic, my setup, all the different components, my process of putting it on in the beginning of the day, taking it off, cleaning it, maintaining it. I'm going to do a whole thing on that. But just since this just happened here, which is pretty typical for something to go wrong when I travel, that seems to be the case. Just give you guys a look at what that is. But nothing to get freaked out about, just something to be aware of. And I'm obviously want to get it taken care of as soon as possible. So, but we're all good. All right, so we are back home. I've been home a few days now from Montana, where I was out, as you guys are tracking here, to go link up with Andy Stumpf and go on Cleared Hot, his podcast. I didn't get a chance to kind of put a bow on it because within an hour of leaving the studio, my phantom limb pain just skyrocketed, and it just sent me into this nasty spiral. I mean, I felt horrible, which I decided because of that, I'm going to do a separate specific episode here on Unfiltered on phantom limb pain because it's a wild phenomenon. But just to wrap up this episode here, it was probably a reasonable ending to my Montana trip because I just totally botched the logistics behind that. So I feel like I just had to learn that lesson the hard way, and that was a good way to do that, ending my trip with that experience. But I just want to come on in and say, just to kind of wrap this up here, that going on Cleared Heart was a personal win for me. I've been a fan of Andy and that platform now for a really long time. And same as with Jocko, I am happy to be able to report that who you see as a podcaster and as a speaker and as a public figure, who you see is really the guy. That really is the guy. Andy does not put on a facade when cameras are rolling. That's really him. And I was even less surprised about that than I was with Jocko, which I wasn't expecting that with either of them. Andy's podcast is a little rougher around the edges, a little bit more language used. Jocko kind of cleans his up for reason, which I can relate to, because again, even just what I do for a living now in uniform, there are times where I'm talking to my teammates and there are times that I'm talking to a senior leader, and the way I do that is different. So purely authentic still, it doesn't change anything. Andy just lets it send when he's on his podcast. So, but he is exactly who you see. He is exactly who you hear. Really smart dude, really humble dude. I thanked him at the end of the episode, for what he does. And he really wasn't trying to hear all that, which is tough. I know, I recognize that it's difficult to kind of accept compliments or, positive feedback. It can make us uncomfortable, but he's just a down to earth, really intelligent dude who's been wildly successful across multiple sectors, and for good reason. A guy that has the military experience as Andy, working with, one of the most elite organizations on the planet, and having done so for a really long time with honor and distinction. You may think that, those of us that are in this community, even though Andy operated at an entirely different level, doing different things, but those of us within special operations, we're the knuckle draggers, we're the pipe hitters, we're the meatheads. We spend all of our day in the weight room and on the shooting range, and we grunt a lot when we talk like apes with really expensive, lethal equipment. And there are certainly plenty of us in this world, in this industry, that meet that definition. Most, however, do not, because one of the things that makes us unique is our intellectual capacity to solve problems. So it also was not a surprise to hear Andy talk about the things that he enjoys talking about and his understanding of different aspects of life and business and brand development and growth and how he approaches his personal life. Just a ton of value there. So just as it was with Jocko, yeah, the exposure is great, and I will never deny that in terms of my brand and platform and business development and growth as we are grinding here in the infantile stages of that. That has value. But just as it was with Jocko, is the same with Andy, that the greatest win was just to be able to absorb some of that intelligence and experience and expertise as someone who's young and hungry to be moving in similar directions. That was the greatest reward. So well worth the investment, both time, energy, and money to head out there to Kalispell, Montana. Lessons learned the hard way moving forward. As I continue to travel more and more often, I need to do a better job of taking a closer look at where I'm going and what that operational environment looks like so I can plan accordingly and be prepared properly for what I'm going into. Overall, amazing experience. This may go live here. This episode you're looking at right now may go live prior to the Cleared Heart podcast that I was a part of. If that's the case, I hope you check it out. A little rougher around the edges, right? So similar to this series right here that we're doing, where you're going to get, a little bit more of the team guy version of Nick than, maybe the more polished version. So be prepared for that. There's some language. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I know that there was language between both Andy and I. A couple team guys just chopping it up for, like 3 hours. If it hasn't come out yet, if we drop this first, then keep your eye out for it. All of the podcasts I'm on, at least most of them anyway, if we're doing our job right, they all go on there. You can find the links to them on our website, machinenick.com. And then obviously you can just check up on Andy Stumpf's Instagram, his website, Cleared Heart podcast website, all the different places you can find it. It's out there. So hope you guys enjoy it. And, that concludes another step in this process here as we grind. So let's go.